This is in response to Billy's Talking Points memo from Monday, March 2nd, 2015. Danger overseas getting closer. Now, Billy, you're all over the map tonight. There was a lot of stuff that I don't believe is correct in any way, shape, or form. I'd like to correct it. I'd like to correct your incorrections, the things that you have incorrect. But let's start out by saying, what makes today more dangerous than it was yesterday? I don't really know. Of course, you start out with Bibi's talk in front of the Congress, where he's going to lay out how terrible a deal it is to make a deal with Iran. And of course, what's the option if we don't have a deal? I don't know what the option is if we don't have a deal. I guess if we don't have a deal, we can either increase the sanctions or continue the sanctions that we have right now and see if they'll come back to the table. In the meantime, we already have inspectors on the ground over there. We already have tabs on what's going on in some of their nuclear facilities. We know that they're not producing weapons-grade uranium, that they are producing uranium that has been enhanced so that they can make energy out of it, but they don't have weapons-grade uranium as of yet. And I do know that that is a long process. It's a much more detailed process. It's a much harder process, and it's doubtful that they'll be able to get there on their own unless we get some rogue nations who will send them some stuff. And it's my understanding that we don't want any other nation to do that. We're going to make sure that that's not done. And if there is no deal, let's remember that Iran needs to have oil at about $100 a barrel, and right now it's at about $50 a barrel. Or Brent is about $60 a barrel. So they're hurting right now, and the sanctions are hurting them. And then if we don't get a deal from them, we can put more sanctions on Iran, and they'll be hurting even more. Now, will this make them stop? Hey, I don't know. But we always, Billy, you pointed out that if we can't make the deal with them, it's just drawing us that much closer to war. I'm not really sure about that. I don't really think, for all the bluster that we talk about Iran, and yes, they're not a good player over there. They're not a good player. They're looking out for their own best interest, though. Of course, they're thinking they're a good player, but at the same time, we don't want them to get a bomb. And we know that they don't want to get in a fight with us. And I do believe it was Hillary Clinton that said maybe a year or 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago when she was still Secretary of State, if they ever did get the bomb and used it somewhere, let's say against Israel, they'd be obliterated. And they would be. I mean, that's exactly what would happen. So let's talk about what you've never talked about, Billy, which is how they got a number of plants over in Iran. Many of them are underground, and so they might be hard to hit. But we do know what they're capable of doing. We do have inspectors on the ground right now. We do know they're not producing weapons-grade uranium at this particular point in time. And if I remember correctly, Billy, back in the day when I was in about 6th grade, we had to study back how they made U-235 had to be enhanced so there could be U-238. Remember that? I think we learned that in science, 6th grade, 9th grade, something like that. It was a pretty drawn-out process, but Americans could do it. I'm sure that they could do it if they had the type of machinery to do it, but they can't produce their own machinery. They don't even produce their own gas, as far as I know. And they're going to have to import that, and they're not going to get that. We're going to make sure that they don't get that. And as I said, there are inspectors on the ground. We're going to make a deal that's beneficial to us. All right? Can we allow certain things that maybe the far right and Bibi don't want? Yeah, I'm sure that we can. I don't know how much is too much, but I think that we might be able to make a deal with them. If they want to use uranium for peaceful purposes, they can't go from U-235 to U-238 or whatever it is, or they cannot produce weapons-grade uranium. I'd say that's all good, but I don't think that that if we don't have a deal with them today, that we're going to be at war tomorrow. I think that we can do the other things like increase the sanctions and continue the sanctions that we have. And, I'd say just keep doing solar, geothermal, wind energy, and keeping gas going down. It's going to hurt them, right? All of that stuff. But then, you got to go back and you got to blame Obama for the whole thing. You got to talk about how he's weak. You bring on some black guy named Ridley Scott. No, not Ridley Scott. Jason Scott. So, to talk about how he's weak, how they all perceive him as weak, how Putin thinks he's weak. The mullahs in Iran think that he's weak. They all have him psychologically profiled. And all this kind of stuff. And like I said, Iran's hurting right now. Russia's hurting right now. Brent's at about $60 a barrel. West Texas crude's at about $50 a barrel. They need Brent to be, both of those countries, Iran and Russia, need oil to be at about $100 a barrel for them to run their economies correctly. So they're hurting. All right, Iran trades in. Iran's got to trade in dollars. That's not happening right now. So all this stuff that Jason talks about, it looks good. It sounds good on TV. Oh, we don't like Obama, so let's just talk about how weak and ineffective he is. In the meantime, the United States is exerting its muscle all over the world every single day. And that's the way it's been before, and that's the way it continues to be. Why do you think we have embassies? So we can push our trade policies over somewhere else as best we possibly can. And of course, you have to bring in the whole ISIL thing and about how Obama's leading from behind, and now King Abdullah of Jordan is running the whole show. Well, he's not running the whole show. Remember how you talked about how they had 80,000 troops, but they're not in northern Iraq right now. They're not in Syria. Right? Now, I did notice that I do believe that it was yesterday that Rachel Maddow had something talking about there were 20,000 troops of Iraq that are heading towards Tikrit to basically go ahead and help go after Tikrit to liberate Tikrit from ISIL. They're not only using Iraqi soldiers, they're using Sunni tribesmen and Shia militiamen who are being trained and who are being monitored and who are being led by Iranians. So there's a lot going on here. And for you, again, to say that Obama is not on top of this when he said over 6 months ago, maybe even 8 months ago, maybe 10 months ago, that this war with ISIL was going to be a couple-year war. Now, King Abdullah is doing the best that he can. He understands the stakes that are going on out there. Obama has expressed those same issues about what the stakes are. We don't want a failed state in Iraq. We don't want a failed state in Syria. There would be a lot of repercussions when there are failed states, especially in that area of the world. So, the danger isn't growing any more today from what it was yesterday. It has remained the same. We are doing a lot in terms of trying to keep Iran from having a bomb. We will not let Iran get a bomb, and we are working diligently with our partners. Now the King Abdullah has stepped up. He can help out. My understanding is that we have 20,000 Iraqi troops that are heading over there to try and liberate Tikrit, and these are all good things.